Welcome to the Minute of Terror channel. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment where you are watching this video from. I never believed in the legends that circulate through the interior of Brazil, especially in Sertão, Bahia, where I was on July 11, 2025, staying at a simple guest house in Riacho Seco, an isolated village about 50 kilometers from Juazeiro, in the heart of Brazil's northeast, at 6:30 in the evening. With the sun setting and painting the sky in shades of orange, I decided to walk along a trail cutting through Caatinga, a landscape typical of the Brazilian Sertão, with its cacti and dry shrubs. I wanted to watch the sunset and jot down impressions in my travel notebook. The guest house, with its mud walls and a backyard where chickens were already settling into their roosts, smelled of earth and firewood. Dona Zifa, the owner, warned me with a serious look. In Brazil, the Sertão doesn't forgive those who walk alone at night. I thought it was just northeastern folklore and went out anyway. With a light backpack, water bottle, flashlight, and notebook, I started down the trail. The full moon, so common on clear nights in Brazil's interior, illuminated the sparse Caatinga vegetation. The warm air carried that dusty smell typical of the Brazilian Sertão, mixed with a faint scent of umbu, a fruit emblematic of the region. For the first half hour, everything seemed calm. My footsteps echoed on the packed dirt, accompanied by the chirping of crickets, a sound any Brazilian who's visited the countryside would recognize. I felt at home, even though I was so far from my city, Sao Paulo. Around 7, something changed. The wind stopped and the crickets, so common in rural Brazil, suddenly fell silent. The Caatinga, this quintessentially Brazilian piece of our country, seemed to hold its breath. My heart raced, but I continued, shining my flashlight to sides, where shadows danced among the mandacaru cacti and chichuazix. I heard a low growl, like something moving quickly through the bushes. I thought of jaguars, but they're rare in the Bahian Sertão. I recalled stories I'd heard at the village bar about the Chupacabra, a creature from Brazilian folklore that supposedly attacks livestock and, sometimes, people. I laughed at myself, tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, shaped by so many tales told in the storytelling circles of Brazil's interior. An hour after setting out, I reached a clearing where the trail seemed to end. In the center stood a dry umbuzero tree, so typical of the Brazilian Sertão, its twisted branches rising under the moonlight. Near it, a large rock reflected the moon's glow, almost like a natural altar. I felt a chill but approached, drawn by an inexplicable curiosity. On the rock, I saw deep grooves like claw marks, nothing that seemed made by human hands. The silence was heavy, and my flashlight, even with new batteries bought at a small shop in Juazeiro, started to flicker. Suddenly, something moved behind me. I turned quickly, and my flashlight caught eyes glowing in the darkness about 10 meters away. They were large, yellowish, fixed. My blood ran cold. Before I could think, I heard paws running on the dirt, and a dark, lean, fast shape came toward me. It was bigger than a dog, with long limbs and a strange head, its teeth glinting under the moon. It was a Chupacabra, a living legend of Brazilian folklore, right there in the Bahian Sertão. It let out a shrill hiss that echoed through Caatinga. Instinct took over. I grabbed a dry branch and braced myself. The creature lunged, and I felt its claws graze my arm as I swung the branch. The impact was strong, and it recoiled, hissing. I rolled to the side, but it came again, faster. I landed another blow, this time to its head, and it staggered. My heart pounded like a São João festival drum, so common in Brazil. The struggle lasted less than a minute, but felt like an eternity. Finally, the creature let out a guttural sound and vanished into the darkness, as if the Brazilian Sertão had swallowed it. Panting, I saw deep scratches on my forearm, but nothing serious. Blood trickled, but not much. I grabbed my backpack and ran back down the trail, not looking back. The path, which had seemed long before, flew by under my feet. I reached the guest house at 8:30, nearly 2 hours after leaving. Dona Zifa, still on the porch, looked at me in shock. I showed her the scratches, and she, saying little bracachaca, that typical drink of Brazil's interior, and a cloth to clean the wounds. "You escaped by a hair," she said, with the wisdom of someone who knows the Sertão. That night in the hammock with my arm bandaged, I didn't sleep. The scratches stung, but what haunted me were those eyes and that hiss. The next day, I showed the marks to a vaquero from the village, a common figure in rural Brazil. He confirmed it was the Chupacabra. It marks but doesn't kill. He showed me a scar on his shoulder from an attack years before. Later, I researched and found reports in Bahian newspapers, like an attack on goats in 2023 near Riacho Seco, recorded in the Jornal do Sertão, a local paper. I know it sounds crazy, but this happened in Brazil in the Bahian Sertão. The Caatinga holds secrets that defy logic, and those 2 hours mark me forever. The scratches, now healed, are proof that something real crossed my path in the heart of Brazil. I was on the porch of our house in Fortaleza with my grandson, Lucas, sitting beside me, his eyes wide with curiosity, holding a glass of cashew juice he'd forgotten to drink. It was a hot July night in 2025, and the Serra sky sparkled with stars, as it always did on clear nights in our state. Lucas asked for a story, one of those only grandfathers tell, and my mind went back to a terrifying night in 1957, when I was just a 9-year-old boy living in a village called Pedra Branca, about 60 kilometers from Quixada, in the heart of the Serra Sertão. What I experienced that rare rainy night, in an ordeal that lasted about 20 minutes but felt like an eternity, marked my life with a fear I still feel, and now I was telling Lucas, my heart tight, as if I were back there again. Back then, rural Brazil, especially the Serra Sertão, was a place of few lights and many stories. Our house was made of mud with a thatched roof, surrounded by a yard where we kept chickens, a few goats, and an old pig. Life was simple, but the Sertão had its mysteries, shared in storytelling circles by the light of oil lamps. The elders spoke of hauntings, like the headless mule or the werewolf, but the story that scared us most was about the Chupacabra, a creature said to attack animals and drain their blood to the last drop. With my child's mind, I thought these were just tales to keep me quiet at night, until that night in 1957, when the rain fell, a rare event in the dry Sertão. It was around 7 in the evening, and the usually clear sky was covered with dark clouds. The rain started light, but soon turned into a downpour, with thunder that shook the ground. I was on the porch with my father, a strong man, a vaquero hardened by the Serra sun, who was mending a hammock under the faint light of a lamp. Suddenly, the animals in the yard grew restless. The chickens, usually quiet at night, clucked in panic, flapping their wings against the wooden coop. The goats bleated, a sound almost human, like a scream, and even the pig, always calm, grunted as if desperate. My heart raced. I looked at my father, who was already on his feet, his face showing something I'd never seen, a mix of alertness and fear. "Stay here, Zay," he said, but my boyish curiosity was stronger than fear. I grabbed a lamp, trembling in my hand, and followed him into the yard, the rain soaking my clothes. The air smelled of wet earth, mixed with a strange metallic odor I didn't recognize. The goats were huddled in a corner of the pen, bleating as if begging for help. My father pointed to the back of the yard, where the lamp's light barely reached. That's when I saw it. A creature, the size of a child, with dark, membranous wings like a giant bat, crouched over one of our goats. Its eyes glowed a vivid red, reflecting the lamp's light, and its mouth, full of sharp teeth, was buried in the goat's neck. The goat trembled, its eyes glassy, while the creature sucked its blood with a horrible, wet, gurgling sound. I froze, the lamp nearly slipping from my hand. My father let out a guttural yell, a mix of rage and terror, and ran back into the house. The creature lifted its head, staring straight at me, and I swear I felt my soul turn to ice. Its skin was scaly, glistening in the rain, with sharp spines running down its back like knives. It released a goat which collapsed, drained, with 2 deep punctures in its neck. Before I could scream, the creature spread its tattered wings and let out a shrill roar that echoed to the yard, drowning out even the rain. My father returned in seconds, clutching the hunting rifle, a relic he kept to protect the livestock. He aimed at the creature, which was already preparing to leap. The first shot cut through the air, hitting its left wing. Dark, almost black blood splattered on the ground, and the creature roared even louder, a sound that seemed otherworldly. It flapped its wings, clumsy from a wound, and flew low, knocking down part of the pen's fence. My father tried another shot, but the rain blurred his aim, and the creature vanished into the darkness of Katinga, leaving a trail of blood and a foul stench in the air. I was shaking so much I could barely hold the lamp. My father pulled me back inside, locking the door as if that could protect us. The rain continued, but the animals were now silent, as if they knew the worst had passed. My mother, who'd heard everything from the kitchen, prayed softly, clutching her rosary. My father, his face pale, stood watch on the porch for the rest of the night, rifle by his side. I didn't sleep. The image of those red eyes and that roar wouldn't leave my mind. The next morning, the rain had stopped, and the Sarah sun shone fiercely, as if trying to erase the night's terror. My father called me to follow him into Katinga, near where the creature had fled. About 100 meters from the house, we found something that brought the fear back. The creature's body, gutted, sprawled among the mandacaru cacti. Its wings were torn, its body covered in slashes, as if something even crueler had attacked it. The black blood pooled in the dirt, and the smell was unbearable. My father covered his face with a cloth and said he'd never seen anything like it in all his years in the Sertão. The whole village heard about it. Seu Raimundo, the storekeeper, said he'd heard stories of Chupacabras in Serra, but never so close. A clipping from the Jornal do Cariri from 1956, which he kept, mentioned attacks on goats in nearby villages, with marks like the ones we saw. Some called it a demon, others an unknown animal, but all agreed the Serra Sertão held things better left alone. My father, always brave, decided we couldn't stay. 2 weeks later, we sold what we had and moved to Fortaleza, leaving the house, the goats, and that terror behind. I looked at Lucas, his face now pale, the cashew juice untouched. I told him that, even after all these years, I've never returned to Pedra Branca. The Brazilian Sertão, with its raw beauty and mysteries, taught me there are things we don't explain. That rainy night, those 20 minutes of pure terror, changed my family forever. Even now, when I hear thunder or see a goat at the market, I feel a chill, as if those red eyes are still watching me, hidden somewhere in the Serra Sertão. I'm an anthropology professor at the Federal University of Maranhão, and in July 2013, I decided to spend a few days in a small village called São Benedito, about 70 kilometers from Imperatriz, in the interior of Maranhão, Brazil. My goal was to document oral histories for a project on northeastern folklore. I arrived on a stifling afternoon, with the scorching sun of Brazil's interior beating down on the red earth. The village was small, with mud houses and thatch roofs, surrounded by low scrub and babaca palms. The locals welcomed me with hospitality but wary glances, as if I, an outsider from São Luís, couldn't grasp the secrets of that place. That night, an experience forever changed my view of what's real. It was around 7 in the evening, and Maranhão heat, even after sunset, clung to the skin like a second layer. The full moon, so common on clear nights in rural Brazil, bathed the village in a silvery glow, but the sky felt heavy, promising a storm. I was at Dona Rosa's house, an elderly woman known for her stories, sitting with other villagers in a storytelling circle lit by an oil lamp. They spoke in hushed tones about recent attacks on chicken coops. Chickens, and even some goats, have been found dead, with punctures in their necks and not a drop of blood left. "It's the Chupacabra," said an old man, S.U. Mano, his eyes wide. As someone used to treating legends as cultural metaphors, I jotted it all down in my notebook, but didn't take it seriously. Then they mentioned an abandoned corral a few kilometers away, where the latest attack had happened the previous week. My curiosity overpowered my better judgment, and I decided to investigate. I grabbed my backpack, packed with a flashlight bought at a small shop in Imperatriz, an audio recorder, and my notebook. The trail to the corral was packed dirt, marked by cart tracks and old rain furrows. The air smelled of dust and something sweet, perhaps buriti flowers. As I walked, the village's silence gave way to the sounds of Maranjo forest, crickets, frogs, and rustling leaves. But as I neared the corral, those sounds faded, as if the night was holding its breath. The heat felt more oppressive, and my flashlight, even with new batteries, flickered intermittently. My heart raced, but I chalked it up to the adrenaline of being alone on a dark trail in Brazil's interior. I reached the corral, a rickety wooden structure covered in moss with broken planks. The moonlight revealed strange footprints on the ground, long, with claw-like marks, unlike any animal I knew. The silence was now absolute, except for my own breathing. I aimed the flashlight inside the corral and froze. There, crouched over a still-twitching chicken, was a creature that belonged in no biology book. It was the size of a large dog, with scaly skin that glistened under the moonlight, as if wet. Its wings, membranous and tattered, were folded against its back, and sharp spines ran along its spine. Its eyes, a vivid red, glowed like embers, and its mouth, full of razor-sharp teeth, was buried in the chicken's neck, making a horrific sucking sound. My body locked up, and the flashlight trembled in my hand. The creature lifted its head, letting the chicken fall, now motionless, with 2 deep punctures in its neck. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I swear I felt a chill run down my spine despite the heat. Before I could react, it let out a shrill roar that seemed to slice through the night and spread its wings, flapping them against the humid air. The gust kicked up dust and made the corral creak. Instinct took over. I turned and ran down the trail, the flashlight swinging, illuminating only patches of the forest. I heard its wings beating behind me, a rhythmic, terrifying sound mixed with hisses that echoed through the trees. The trail, now muddy from a light rain that had started, seemed endless. My sneakers slipped, and branches scratched my face as I ran, feeling the creature getting closer. I glanced back for a moment and saw its red eyes glowing in the dark, just a few meters away. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. I tripped on a root, falling to my knees in the mud, and the flashlight rolled away, going out. The creature's roar was so close, I felt its hot breath on my neck. I rolled to the side, desperate, and grabbed a rock from the ground, hurling it toward the glowing eyes. I heard a pained screech, and the wing beat stopped for a moment. I scrambled up and ran, guided only by the moonlight, until I saw the faint lights of the village. I reached Dona Rosa's house gasping, covered in mud and scratches. The villagers, still on the porch, looked at me as if I were a ghost. My backpack was torn, and my notebook, soaked, had claw marks on the cover. I said nothing, just asked for a glass of water, and sat, trembling. Dona Rosa, without asking, brought cachaca and a cloth to clean my face. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered, as if afraid the creature might hear. I didn't answer, but the fear in my eyes was enough. The next morning, with the Maranjo sun blazing as usual, I returned to corral with S.U. Mano and another villager, Zé do Armazém. We found the chicken drained with the same punctures, Near the corral were dark feathers, too large for any common bird, and footprints that stopped abruptly, as if the creature had taken flight. Zay showed me a clipping from the Journal de Imperatriz from 2012, kept in his wallet, about similar attacks in nearby villages, all attributed to the Chupacabra. He said Maranhão had always had these stories, but no one came back unscathed after seeing the creature. I didn't sleep that night. The image of those red eyes and the sound of that roar haunted me. I recorded a statement on my recorder, but the audio was poor, full of static, as if something interfered. When I returned to São Luís, I researched more and found that Brazilian folklore, especially in the Northeast, is rife with Chupacabra stories, with cases even reported on TV Mirante. But none of that explained what I felt. The pure terror of being hunted by something that shouldn't exist. That night in São Benedito marked me forever, and now, whenever I hear the wind blow at night, I feel a chill, as if the Chupacabra is still out there, waiting, hidden in the Maranhão forest.